All right. So, thanks everyone for tuning in. This is another episode of Innovative Locations where we have candid conversations with our partners about the unique things they're doing across a variety of sectors. I am Eden Ames, your host, and in the last 3 episodes we've talked with Putt Shack, Toka Social, and actually that's 2, but adding to the 3rd today is WhirlyBall, which is another popular location-based entertainment concept. So really excited to have Adam here. Adam Elias is the VP of WhirlyBall. He's been with them for 30 years, and here at ARCA we've been in touch with Adam for a while now, and you guys are teeing up for national expansion, which is really exciting to us, so we're exploring opportunities to work together. But yeah, so off the bat, I'm not sure if everybody listening today is going to know what WhirlyBall is, so Adam's given us a video that I think paints the picture pretty well. So we'll go ahead and put that up for you to see.
Take polo, swap out the horses for bumper cars, and the mallets for those plastic scoops from grade school gym class, and you get WhirlyBall. Players pass a wiffle ball down the court lacrosse style, looking for a clear shot or a teammate who has one, all while purring along on a special bumper car called a whirlybug, which can dart from side to side and even go in reverse. These bumbling little beetles are what make WhirlyBall so dang fun, but they also help to level the playing field. It doesn't matter if players are athletic, because everyone is in a vehicle that tops out at 4 miles per hour, so speed is never a competitive advantage. Instead, WhirlyBall requires timing and positioning, anticipating the movements of teammates and reading the plays of opponents. The low max speed keeps players safe when jockeying for loose balls or getting T-boned when they have a clear break to the backboard. A referee oversees the game from a perch, awarding points, doling out penalties, and patiently waiting for the end of the day when they can close the curtains and get out on the court to play for themselves.
Cool. Yeah, so awesome game. I've played it before. I think it's awesome. It really is unlike anything that's out there. And the other thing that's cool about WhirlyBall is it's not just the game. They've really upgraded their menus for food. Another popular reason for visiting would be events, corporate events, weddings, all kinds of stuff. So Adam, we all just saw that video and some photos of your food and the events that you guys host. If you can just tell us a little bit about what's the full experience of WhirlyBall. What does a guest experience when they walk through the doors? What brings them to you guys, and what do they see and feel when they visit?
Well, first off, Eden, thank you for having me. And the most important thing to note is WhirlyBall, as you saw, it really is the most fun you can have going 4 miles an hour. It is something that levels the playing field, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But when you first walk in the doors, our team's going to greet you. Most likely, you're going to be there for a party, whether, as Eden kind of mentioned, it's a corporate outing, a rehearsal dinner, a bachelor party, a birthday party, your son or daughter's 10th birthday, and we're going to take you to your private area where you're going to get set up with a beverage package if it's of 21 and older crowd, or a food offering coupled with that, and all of your activities. We do lane side service at our bowling lanes, and we also have private spaces for kids' birthday parties and event spaces for corporate meetings, rehearsal dinners, and things of that nature as well. So it's a lot more than just the activity and game of WhirlyBall. It's the bowling, the laser tag, the added components of our rotating craft beer selection, and our elevated culinary program that we do both a dine-in menu, so if you're coming in to just grab bites, or if you're coming in for a full function where it's a 3 or 4 course meal with appetizers all the way through to a dessert.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And your background right now isn't that from the Chicago bar? Is that right? At your location?
Yeah. This is our flagship location in the city. Behind us is our downstairs bar. We have 2 bars on the property. Upstairs we have a secondary bar, but this is where all of the action happens.
Cool. Yeah, I love the aesthetic. It's a really cool place. So back to the game. So how many people play at a time? It looked like there were a lot out there in the video.
Yeah, so Whirlyball is, as you saw, the combination of basketball, lacrosse, and hockey all rolled into one in bumper cars. 2 teams of 5, red team versus the black team. Games are typically 10-minute games, and we rotate on the after every 10-minute round. But groups are typically reserving the court by the hour. 1 to 2 hours is an average group time frame that they'll rent a court, depending on the number of people. And our sales team will help kind of educate the guest on what is going to make the most sense for their group. But usually groups can get between 5 to 6 games in an hour. Mm-hmm. So a lot of time.
Cool. So okay, now kind of zooming out to the history of Whirlyball. I think you guys are generally a household name in the Chicagoland area, but tell us more of the backstory. Where did the game begin? Where is it now? And what's been your involvement? And how have you seen it, change over all of these years?
Well, Whirlyball originated, the first bumper cars were actually part of the Walt Disney Parade. So they were gas powered, and the manufacturer, who was still the same manufacturer for us, created those gas powered bumper cars. And iteration after iteration, they went from a gas powered bumper car to an electric bumper car, which is what we play with today. And it started where they were playing this game in gas powered bumper cars in a warehouse, and they were all getting sick from the fumes, if you could believe it. Mm-hmm. And because of that, they said, we should put electric. And through the different rounds of iteration, they eventually evolved to the game of Whirlyball that we know and love today. Originally, we were engaged. Whirlyball has been in my family's business for nearly 30 years. And my dad started this when him and my mom and I were all living in South Florida. My mom threw my dad a surprise 30th birthday party at a place called Whirlyball. And at the time, it was literally the game, bleachers, and nothing else. So they brought in sandwiches and drinks, and they made a party for it. And he was looking for something different. He had his own computer IT business, and didn't feel there was an exclusive component to what he was doing. Anyone around that had the skill set could get involved. Whereas Whirlyball had a territory and a unique protected area, and the concept itself wasn't easy to replicate. So at the time, the manufacturer was selling licenses geographically. And after doing a lot of research, it made sense to open in Chicago. And everyone said, why are you moving to Chicago? And his response at the time, he said, because of the weather. You're like, well, you live in Florida, the weather's perfect. No. This is a place where people need to be inside 8 to 9 months out of the year and recognize that it's a dense population that needs indoor activity. And in January 15th of 1993, we opened our Lombard location. And in 3 months, we became the highest grossing Whirlyball in the country, as the manufacturer had sold licenses to other operators throughout the U.S. at that time. Now moving forward, we've added a location in the city of Chicago, which opened in 1996. That relocated to where it is today on Webster Avenue, which backs up to the major thoroughfare, the 94 Kennedy Expressway in Chicago. We made that relocation in December of 14. And then we also have a location that opened in Vernon Hills, which is in the northern suburbs of Chicago, in 2004. And then we also have a property in Brookfield, Wisconsin, Naperville, Illinois, and then also our out-of-state location in Colorado Springs, Colorado. So today we have 5 locations throughout the U.S., operating in 3 different states. And now that things are starting to normalize in this world, we're starting to shift gears again back to our main focus of growing this concept nationwide, and not just being a Chicago household name and being a nationwide household name.
Yeah, that's awesome. It sounds like your dad really had good instincts there, because do you think that was just the result of being a Midwesterner, or like how did he come to that conclusion of like, we need to find a place that people are cooped up, they want something to do, and there's winter months where they don't have options?
Well, originally he went to school in Atlanta at Emory and felt Atlanta would make sense. Started doing research around that market, Said, all right, well, there are existing operators in the greater Detroit area which still have locations to this day. Went up to Detroit as they were the most successful at the time and saw the hustle and the energy and the volume of sales they were doing. And in his hotel room, pre-internet, pulled out his Rand McNally and looked across the lake and said, well, the greater Detroit market works. Chicago must work too. And instead of going to Atlanta at the last minute, shifted gears and we ended up in Chicago. And 30 years later, we're still here.
Cool. So tell us about how the brands evolve, because obviously in your hands, since you guys now have that, you're the sole licensee, right? And you have the rights to expand, and there's still some independents out there, but they're not expanding. So, you know, like, you had the full control of the WhirlyBall brand. How have you changed it? What's driven those changes? You know, like the original location that I think you guys had visited was something really, really simple with a concession stand. And now, you know, look at that bar behind you. It's definitely got a lot more polish. So yeah, just walk us through what drove those changes. Who's your target market? You know, how are you positioning yourself to really engage with the people you're hoping to get in the doors?
Sure. Well, a lot of things. Since '93 to today, as you can see behind me, we've grown a lot. A lot of that comes from listening to our guests. And the first thing that started in '93 that set us apart from others, that we started doing alcoholic beverage, beer and wine specifically to start. And a concession stand was actually what we began with. Pizzas, Funyuns, stickers. Think of a hockey concession stand or an ice rink concession stand. That's essentially where we started. And over time, we evolved. We had an outside caterer who would do all of our private events at the time, and we would pre-order all of the food with them. They'd bring it in for a corporate outing or a private event. And the issue with that, and they didn't intend on forcing our hand into the food business, but unintentionally they did. And the reason I say that is if your group wanted to add an additional set of pizzas or an additional order of wings or something else, we'd have to call the caterer would have to prepare that and bring it out, which took a lot of time. And the guests, by the time it got to them, said, I really am not interested in having this anymore. And so we realized that this was an opportunity to make our own food and have it out to the guest, and that made a huge change. And as that happened, we put in our own kitchens, we brought on a chef, and over time, we progressed our way up to where we are today, where you're seeing a full chef-driven menu with a scratch kitchen, and then pairing that with our large craft beer program that is a big component of what we do, and tying that with the food that we have daily.
Yeah.
Cool. So those are some of the big elements. And then the other added piece is increasing our service model. So this way, when you're sitting at a bowling lane, our staff is coming, our servers are coming to you and providing laneside service for both drinks, food, anything else. Would you like to add more time to your bowling lane? All of those things happen at your comfort, instead of the traditional sense where you had to walk over and get this or stop by the bar to get a drink. We really elevated that same model when you're playing WhirlyBall too. So those that are off the court in between games can refresh with something to eat or drink. And servers are coming by with those replenishments.
Yeah. How about the laser tag and bowling and all of those things that are, additional game options? How did you guys decide to incorporate that? Because you do have this really unique model. Like, WhirlyBall is just, like we've said and people have seen now, it's not really anything that's standard,
Right.
So you've got this great, unique game. What drove the decision to add some of those more familiar game options too, between laser tag, bowling, etc.?
Well, laser tag is not new for us. We've had laser tag over 10 years at this point, well over, closer to 15 years. Mm-hmm. And it's been something that can grab a large group of people. You can have 30 players at one time. And what's nice is people can rotate and play WhirlyBall for a little bit, and then they have another option of something to do. And again, it's a large group-oriented activity. Laser tag is also very much in the same mindset of a level playing field, because most people aren't good at laser tag. It's something that we all can just enjoy and have fun together doing. Mm-hmm. And then bowling was brought in when we had to relocate our Chicago location. We were on Fullerton in the city of Chicago for about 19 years, which is on the north side of the city for those that are out of state. And the city claimed eminent domain, that really funky clause in a lease that most people rarely exercise. Well, it got called on. The city of Chicago decided that a road needed to go through the building, which rightfully so. The intersection was a terrible intersection in the way it was designed at the time, and they needed to correct it. So with that, we ended up opening our Webster location, which is where I'm at right now with the bar behind me. And we then added bowling at that point. And the reason we added bowling is for a few reasons. There have been times where groups said, you know, Mark in the office has a really bad back and he can't play WhirlyBall, or you know, so-and-so is pregnant right now, so we really cannot do that. Mm-hmm. Well, now we've added a couple bowling lanes next to our WhirlyBall court. So now Mark and whoever else wants to join him can bowl and still be part of the group and have fun. The other component is WhirlyBall is great for large group activities, but where it is not great is for if you and I wanted to go and play WhirlyBall, we would need to go find 8 other people to join us. Yeah. Where with bowling, the two of us can go walk in, grab a bowling lane, grab a couple beers, and have fun. And that is another differentiator, is diversifying our consumer and who's coming through our doors for different purposes, whether it be a 2 or 4 person group or a large group for WhirlyBall. So we're able to capture 2 different types of guests at the same time.
Yeah, and on that note, so what does like a typical week look like for you in terms of the breakdown of customers who are coming to visit? I'm sure like during the day on weekdays that's different than like evenings and weekends.
Sure. Our guest makeup as a whole, we have a very wide lens of who we target, and the reason being is everybody can play WhirlyBall. As long as you're 54 inches and taller, you can play. And with that, we see everybody from all different demos, ages, everything in between. So our menu, our beverage offering, our cocktail list replicates that, so that everybody, when they walk in the door, can find something that they will want to enjoy from an F&B side. Our weekday business and our weekend business, time of day, day of week, time of year, all of those components play into who you're going to see at our doors that day and time. That said, our weekday business on a normal time is very focused on corporate outings, starting as early as 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning with breakfast meetings in our event spaces, where they'll come in, they'll do a presentation, they'll break for lunch, and then follow the day with a wrap-up of a happy hour with drinks, food, and WhirlyBall and bowling as a way to kind of close out the day. Mm-hmm. And then obviously the sales team outings, the team summer retreat, those things are happening all throughout the week. And then as we get to about Friday evening, the gears start to shift, and we start transitioning to things like a 30th birthday party, a bachelor party, a 40th birthday, a group of friends just saying we wanted to get out of the house. We have been stuck home for 16 months. We're seeing a lot of groups in that way starting to shift in. And then on Saturdays and Sundays, starting first thing in the morning, you'll see lots of kids' birthday parties. Mm-hmm. And 9, 10-year-old laser tag and bowling and WhirlyBall parties happening all the way throughout the day. And then on a Saturday night, you could very well see a bar mitzvah happening on our second level at one of our locations. And they've taken over the upstairs space while we're still hosting lots of group outings, more on a leisure end during the weekends in the evening. Cool. So as you can see, it really is a large array of the consumer that comes through our door. So it's not one, specific demo.
Yeah, and you do walk-ins too, is that right? Or is it just really?
Yeah, do a ton of walk-ins. We just primarily do a lot of reservations because it is an event-driven venue. And if you're planning your birthday party or you're planning a large function, chances are you're going to need to send out invitations, put a date on the calendar, figure out who's coming, and you're going to need a couple weeks to sometimes a couple months. Bar mitzvahs, for example, we have some booked out for a few years from now. Yeah. Same thing, large corporate outings. Coming into 2021's December holiday season, we already have a lot of groups that that are starting to carve out when they're coming in to join us for their parties. Because we are, believe it or not, talking 6 months from now, and we're already booking up for it.
That's awesome.
Because people want to put the calendar, they want to figure out where they're going. And some groups are even having a summer holiday party. We're quote unquote calling it a summer outing in July, and targeting a Christmas in July campaign where groups that missed last year's holiday party are having a summer event this year, and then they'll have their big 2021 holiday party in December or even early January. So we're seeing a lot. People are super excited to be back, and it's nice to see all the smiles on the WhirlyBall court. And as you saw in the video, people are just cracking up and laughing, which is what you do when you play it. It's hard to take yourself seriously on the WhirlyBall court. If you do, I worry.
I don't know. There can be some cutthroat games, at least from my experience.
There are. There can be, especially when you get, Arco playing against someone else, or maybe inter office games. You have two different departments playing. It can get a little intense.
But it's all fun. Cool. So we've kind of gotten that, like WhirlyBall. I think everybody on the listening in today understands what the concept is. So let's talk about growth now. Up until now, like we've said, you guys have really been focused in this Chicago area. And I know there's the Colorado Springs location you've added recently. But as you're teeing up for nationwide growth, what other locations are catching your eye across the country? And what's driving the decision behind a good market option for you?
Well, in order to do this properly, our focus is using GIS mapping studies and specifically mass mobile data to help understand our consumer base at our existing sites, and then better understanding how far they're traveling, who that is, how frequently they're coming, and getting all of that data to then replicate additional markets throughout the U.S. that we're starting to identify as key areas of focus. We know a lot about our guests. We know a lot about what type of market is going to be successful, but taking this extremely focused data that's around our business will help really confirm the best markets for us. And then furthermore, diving deeper into the subset of those markets, where exactly in those areas, in those specific trade areas makes sense for our business. We know that we need to be around lots of corporate companies, and daytime population is a super large focus for us. So knowing those business and office workers are in the nearby area, so that when they wrap up for the day, hey, we'll just go down the street to WhirlyBall. That's an awesome place for us to have a team building outing. It's so much fun, and it's super easy for us all to get to. Using Chicago as an example, the CBD, or the Central Business District downtown, we see a lot of those companies coming to us because we're only 5-6 miles from the city center. And it's very easy for them to come to the north side of the city where we're located. And it's now finding those other markets where it makes sense. Cities that come to mind are places like Austin, Texas, Indianapolis, Denver, Colorado, to list a couple. But we are starting to really put together a full rollout plan of how we're going to start to add additional units and stepping into that year over year and having annual growth, which initially was our plan and where we were at focused as we opened the Brookfield, Wisconsin location in 2019. We opened that in early October of that year. And then about 6 to 8 weeks later, in mid to late November, we opened our Naperville location, which our original Lombard property relocated to Naperville, which is situated next to Topgolf, which I know you guys built that Topgolf, actually. Arco built that. And we're seeing a lot of success with those two new locations. And then as we were coming into 2020, our plan was to start rolling this national growth throughout the U.S. And then obviously we had to put our brakes on for the last while. And now that businesses we're all reopened, all of our locations are now operating on a regular basis, we're now shifting our gears again to grow, which is our old, is to take this throughout the U.S.
This is just like a tangent, well, maybe not tangential, but I'm curious, as there is this giant kind of shift back towards in person in the office, and it's happening kind of at different paces, depending on what industry. I think we're seeing some tech companies say, oh, remote forever, and other companies in like banking where they were back much earlier than maybe others. So as you're processing that data around, well, where should we go for that corporate presence? Are there any other factors that you have to consider for as you're weighing out, are they back in office? Is there the possibility that a lot of their team is going to continue being remote? Anything like that as you're doing your studies?
Well, it's interesting you bring that up. I do believe that even though companies may allow flex work, some time in the office, some not, some people will be remote, I believe as humans, we are naturally drawn to social engagement and gathering and getting together with our peers, our friends, our coworkers. And even if everybody is in an example that you gave of being in a tech company that all is working virtual and remote, they're still going to want to get together periodically. And maybe it's not at the office. Mm-hmm. And we're starting to hear from companies, hey, we want to get our people back together. We're coming up with a strategy for, our roll back into the office and flexing, our flex work schedule. But we want to have an outing to get our people back together and have an evening of seeing everybody in a very welcoming and comfortable space.
Yeah.
And break the ice, if you will, and then we can get back to the office on a normal space. We're even seeing companies that are saying, well, we're not going to the office, or we're at a 50% still. So instead, we're going to go to places like WhirlyBall and have an outing once a month. In fact, our Naperville location, when I mentioned that we relocated from Lombard next to Topgolf, every 2 weeks, they have an outing. And 1 week they come to WhirlyBall, and 1 week they go to Topgolf. So they alternate between the locations, and they keep, they're using this as an entertainment destination between us and Topgolf.
Yeah.
And they do this monthly, bi-weekly, so that they can keep coming in and having fun with their team and having an outing. I believe they do it on a Friday or Thursday, and they come in and have some fun. And our team sees it on a regular basis. It's a great way to get people together. But yeah, groups are definitely coming back. We're seeing corporate events happening, meetings starting to on off-site meetings at our venue starting to happen again as well.
Yeah.
So it's very promising, and I do believe that by the fall, as my prediction, things will start to really normalize in the entertainment world.
Yeah.
Where it starts to normalize trade shows, conferences, conventions, all of the sort will start to come back into the fold.
How is that comparing? How are those numbers comparing to like in the throes of the pandemic? Do you feel like, is it, like 90% of the way there? Is it matching it, or is it still kind of like, working its way up gradually?
Well, if you're referring to revenue during the pandemic when we were under extreme mandates and restrictions, we are leaps and bounds ahead of it. What I can share is the revenue and the way that it's being dispersed throughout our periods and our weeks, as I kind of shared about our consumer base. It's starting to show a really strong foundation and a week over week, period over period growth that we want to see. Mm-hmm. And it's a very strong foundation, and it's being built properly. Whereas when we were in the thrills of the pandemic, it was very interesting how the consumer was behaving, in the sense that it was groups of 4 and 6. Our normal group is 10 to 20 people. So, and we were modifying, we were working with those groups, and it was still productive and successful. But we're now seeing a more normal array of our guests and how they're booking and how they're reserving and the size of the groups, and the volume continues to increase. I know that our locations are standing at about a seven day out commitment at this point. That groups that they're calling right now, probably about a week out before we can get you in.
Cool. Well, that's great to hear. So back on the topic of growth, as you guys are looking at these new locations, what kind of spaces would you say are ideal for WhirlyBall? Because it's a larger, kind of game. So yeah, are you looking at brand new facilities as you're entering new markets? Are you looking at, adaptive reuse and finding spaces that are empty?
Well, a couple things come to mind. We've done a few different types of build outs. In Brookfield, we did, there was a former Sears property that was torn down, and the mall operator partnered with us on building out our own ground up facility, and next to us put a movie theater. Mm-hmm. So we became 2 junior anchor tenants in the market. And why a mall? We see, tons of malls that we can look at throughout the country. Some are great, some are not so great. And one of the things that even a B plus mall can still work for us because of the regional placement that malls typically have, and the ingress egress position that they have off of a thoroughfare or of some large interstate, which makes it really easy for guests to get to us. Yeah. And we also know that we, as a concept, being as unique as it is, can help a mall gain the foot traffic that it might not get on its own traditionally. Mm-hmm. As those other types of retailers are easy to find throughout the market, whereas an entertainment venue like us, with the concept that we have, is very unique and can help bring physical humans back to the mall space. Mm-hmm. So we definitely see, and especially with the amount of big box retailers that have closed during the pandemic or filed bankruptcy and are going to be shuttering stores, there's a lot of large retail space available for us to occupy. Mm-hmm. And one of the challenges that we have with existing retrofits is column spacing for WhirlyBall. Yeah. The typical grid that we find is a 30 by 30 column grid for a department store, as an example. And WhirlyBall requires a 72 foot by 45 foot width with a 16 foot high ceiling. And obviously it needs to be clear span, because you can't have a column in the middle of a WhirlyBall court. Think if you were playing a basketball game and there was a big I-beam in the middle of it, it's going to be pretty awkward. You're probably going to run into it. It just doesn't work. Sure. So those are some of the hurdles that we have with doing an existing. And then the other is, for example, Naperville. It was a field that was developed into a WhirlyBall next to Topgolf, and the area is starting to be developed into an entertainment district. And instead of a mall, it is right off a highway. It has a large thoroughfare called Route 59 right next to it. So we know we're able to get ease of access for our guests, and then the market also complements what we do with the right consumers around us.
Yeah. I just put up your facility requirements. It sounds like with bullet number 2 being excellent visibility from the main road, the signage is a really important component for you.
You would think with geofencing and everything that we can do digitally right now, that visibility of a main sign of the building wouldn't matter as much, but it does. It genuinely is a huge part of getting that visibility and getting people to want to come to the space. Yeah. I can't tell you how many groups send us an inquiry saying, I am looking forward to an event and I found you guys by driving by. Yeah. So that actual storefront visibility is essential in our type of business.
Yeah, that's interesting. Do you track any of that? How do you know when your signage is good enough? Maybe just as insight for other people in the space, in the location-based entertainment space. I mean, how do you know when your signage is working?
Definitely a driver for that, mm-hmm. and also having other concepts around you. If you think about restaurants, there's usually a restaurant cluster, mm-hmm. or if you think about back in the day, if you went on a bar row, there's typically 6 to 10 bars on that same street. You can hop from place to place because that becomes a focal point of where to go. Same thing goes with entertainment. Yeah. If you're looking for entertainment and there's multiple different types of users that all have different offerings, it's easy to pop from one place to the other. We like to partner next to Topgolf because what you do at Topgolf is very different than what you do at WhirlyBall, and seasonally we complement each other. They're a much busier concept in the summer, and as we discussed, we're much busier in the winter. Right. And we help one another from a synergy standpoint. And if you want to swing a golf club, you're going to go there. If you're going to want to jump in a whirlybug, which is what we call them, not bumper cars, mm-hmm. And shoot around with friends, you're going to have a very different experience. Both fun, both great way to get a group of people together, and again, driving people back to the same common space, which is another important part of placement when you're building.
Yeah. So obviously you're growing, you're wanting to expand. So I think that's the telltale sign that your outlook of the future of entertainment is good, right? So I'm curious to hear your thoughts, especially out of the pandemic, and I've been kind of asking everybody this, like, what do you think the future of entertainment is going to look like? Is it a growing space? We could talk about it with the pandemic in mind or without it. Obviously you guys had been talking about growth previously, but what are you measuring and seeing as the trigger for expansion and feeling like this industry is just going to keep growing and there's more room?
Well, first and foremost, we've seen a lot of challenges in the restaurant entertainment space throughout the pandemic. Unfortunately, we've seen some groups have challenges to the point where they've had to close stores or stop their concept altogether, which is a unfortunate reality. But at the same time, we know that the entertainment space is internet proof. This is not something that can be digitized. We tried; it doesn't work. We, during the beginning of the pandemic, we looked at, trying to find ways to monetize our business online, and it's nearly impossible. And that is why mall operators, for example, really like us. We're not a retailer that'll end up as an online platform in 5 years.
Right.
This is something that is built for on-premise and to be with a group of people.
Can I ask how did you guys try to turn it into an online monetization?
I mean, we were doing things like trivia online. We were doing our online beer programs and things like that. And at that point, people were just really focused on being home. Now, some of that was working a little bit, but it can't replace what we do on a daily basis. There's no comparison to what we do and how we do it, in the spirit of our business.
Yeah.
And so we do. I do believe that social interaction is not something that we're going to turn away from. Illinois, as most of us know, just reopened in phase 5. Anyone saw any footage from Wrigley Field or anybody leaving, you can see that people were really excited to be at the game. Yeah. And even watching some of the NBA and NHL final playoff games that are happening right now, you can see fans are coming back. So people have an appetite to gather more so than ever. There's a lot of pent-up demand and just want of getting out of the house. So entertainment does have the opportunity to continue to grow, and with a little bit less options out there as a unfortunate byproduct of the pandemic, it allows for those that are still operating to be able to gain a larger market share than maybe they could previously.
Sure.
And with that, we are seeing that volume is increasing, consumer interest is there, and this is a concept that people have loved and adore in Chicago for as mentioned, like nearly 30 years. So this isn't something that's going to go away. And if you've played or if you're watching and you've played before, the fun that I'm talking about. Because there's two different people I talk to when they go, well, what's WhirlyBall? And they're confused. They kind of furrow their eyebrows. They're kind of looking at me cross-eyed. What's this crazy name? What's this thing? And then those that know what WhirlyBall is, or if we're at a trade show or a conference, WhirlyBall, I love WhirlyBall. It is so much fun. It is so unique. I had the best time. And then most times I hear a story about when they went, what happened, and the memory that they have from the last time they were there, whether it be their friend's birthday, a corporate outing, their bachelor party. That's one of the things that I always smile about, is that memory that people take away after, and it could be 5 years since the last time they played, and they relive it as if it was yesterday, the way they tell that story about the time they played, which is a really cool thing to say.
Cool. So we're kind of winding down to the end of our conversation here, and I've been asking this of everybody who's been on our series. So what knowledge would you want to impart on other entrepreneurs and new concepts that are starting within location-based entertainment?
First and foremost, do your research, top to bottom. Every single line item that you can imagine, from what amusements are you providing, what kind of labor would you need to deploy in order to properly run the concept. Finding a good GC is super important depending on what you're doing from a build-out perspective. Looking into municipality requirements. Are you serving beverages? Are you serving alcoholic beverages? Do you need a license? What does that license look like? Can you get zoned for that? Does the property zone properly for what you're trying to do? All of those components are aspects that, if you miss those, could become costly if you're in the midst of building. Change orders in the world of contractors and builders is a painful conversation to a client, and it can be extremely expensive. Putting an outlet in for electricity when it's just at the studs is a lot less expensive than if you need to put an outlet in after the drywall's in and the paint's on the wall.
Yep.
And if you're not planning ahead of it all, it can really come back to bite you. I mean, there's horror stories out there of people who couldn't get out of the construction phase because they spent too much money in the midst of it. They couldn't open the concept because they ran out of money.
Right.
So making sure you do your research, you funded this thing properly, and that you've really nailed down your budgets on all aspects, and also recognize that you're going to need, capital in order to open it, in addition to all of the build out, marketing it, crazy things like uniforms, opening inventory if you're doing food and beverage. All of those components need to be factored in from sitting down at ideation all the way to implementation of your concept.
Yeah, definitely not something to DIY either. And I mean, that's easy for me to say representing ARCO, but yeah, it's so important to tap resources that are around you too for knowledge and experience. And because I mean, apart from the things that you brought up, there's also the nuances to each market that can just catch people by surprise. So
and anyone who's setting out to do something like that, be prepared for curveballs. There's no way to anticipate them, but sometimes they will come out and surprise you, and you just have to work through them. If it's at a municipality level, if it's a subcontractor who's not able to bring in a material at the right time, situations happen. One of the challenges right now from a development standpoint is building costs because of inflation and everything that's happened. So that is something that we're all as a whole for growth are going to have to really think about as we develop our properties and concepts and how that gets done. It's just the cost of it all is more than it was a year or even 2 years ago. A lot more.
Right. It's tricky when you're dealing with a longer project too, where those costs shift. But great advice to have.
It can take
due
it took us arguably from finding a property all the way through 15 18 months, from the due diligence phase all the way through to final certificate of occupancy. So it can be quite a long, especially when we're talking about a 40,000 foot plus building on 2 levels.
Right.
A lot of MEP work that's very unique to our build. There's a lot of aspects that go into a building like this. It's not your traditional office space where all the bathrooms stack on top of each other. Everything is very streamlined in that way. There's a lot of unique pieces to how we build ours.
Well, Adam, thanks for all your time here. There was just only one question from the audience, and if anybody wants to type one right now into the live chat, you can. But there was a question. I think we maybe clarified this, but you guys are the sole licensee. So if somebody wanted to franchise, it really wouldn't be something that you're currently doing. But if you could talk a little bit about how you partner with third parties who might have that interest, and maybe that doesn't look like franchising. What does it look like then?
So yeah, we're not set up as a licensed franchisor to develop the concept. We did that at one point and didn't feel that was the right path of expansion for us. Mm-hmm. And instead, we have focused our efforts on developing company-owned stores, such as the Milwaukee or Brookfield, Wisconsin location and Naperville, as we developed in 2019. And that said, if there are people that are interested in partnering with us in, for example, a place like Nashville, Tennessee, or another market, and I'm just using that as an example, and they wanted to develop a WhirlyBall there, we could talk about a partnership structure that makes sense for us to develop that and work together. It would ultimately live within our corporate structure. It would be on our website, and it would include and encompass the resources that we have as an organization, but could work with that local partner to help us get that location to an opening state, because capital is definitely a huge component of getting a new location set up. And depending on where that comes from, we'll then structure how the relationship looks.
Cool. And that all goes through you, right? You're the one who spearheads.
Yeah. Any interest, whoever is interested, if they would like to send me an email, I can start a dialogue with you and we can talk through what that looks like in more depth.
Great. Well, Adam, thank you again for your time today. It's been really interesting to learn more about, how you guys are planning your expansion. So if anybody is interested in continuing a conversation with Adam, feel free to just reply to the email that you received for confirmation, and I'll help get you in touch. So yeah, thanks again. It's been fun, and I'm sure we'll talk soon.
Yes, thank you. Sounds great.
Take
care.
All right,
well, have a good day. Thank you for having me.
Yep. All right. Bye.